Hey folks, this is part 2 of our apparently Lisa Curry residency on this podcast. She has an album coming out, Alive, for a while, and take a look and check that out because I don't want to hear about it. But if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, please go back and listen to that because it will make this episode make more sense. The way we divided the episodes up is not in our normal format. We did the normal format, but we talked for so long that there was no real logical split. So you're just going to have to listen and keep listening. Part 3 will be next week. Oh, hi, you're listening to Service from Hell, a podcast featuring people that are currently in customer service positions or the lucky few that got out and all of the good, bad, and infinitely irritating things that go along with that work. I'm actor and writer Kate Gaffney and am uniquely qualified to discuss this as I currently work, or I used to work, at a very busy and very popular comedy club in Los Angeles, and at least one of you listening right now has probably grabbed me and told me you were ready to order when I was running around like a crazy person. So, let's eat!
Like a rose.
Okay, let me go backwards. You wanted to tell a positive, happy story, and then my recorder died because it only accepts negative stories. So, positive, happy story, Lisa. Yeah, sure. Interject. We do have a dessert section at the end, but tell me a happy story now because we just talked a whole bunch about murder, shockingly, with Lisa Curry on a podcast.
This ties into being broke. Because I was desperately broke. The very first thing I did when I got to LA, I drive to Hollywood, I signed the lease. There is a free 311 concert at Jimmy Kimmel that night because Jimmy Kimmel does I moved to LA in 2003. Jimmy Kimmel Live started in 2003. So it started off with these free concerts. So my very first night in LA was going to this free outdoor concert. And I was like, oh, I'm never leaving here. I've never heard of this in my, like, the most we would have in Cedar Lake, Indiana is like,
you mean Chicago?
A shitty bluegrass band. Yeah. Or like somebody doing terrible covers, you know? And you would still have to pay for it. But then like throughout my time in LA, my first couple of years here, I was desperately poor. Like putting a handful of change into my gas tank poor. Going to the gas station being like, I guess, 63 cents on 2, like that's...
Lisa used to, in the back of her car, she had a drop top white Mustang, and she, if you caught her at the wrong day and wanted to go like drive somewhere with her, you would have to be the driver because she would have filled from floor to ceiling, including the trunk, just empty water bottles and like detergent bottles and things, because those were going to go to the recycle bin the recycling plant where you could get some extra money. So she's not this along with all the other lies that she's mentioned on this podcast, that actually isn't a lie. The 63 cents into the gas tank is real. Go ahead.
Yeah. And God bless my old boss who would also, rather than give me a raise that I asked for,
gave you her recycling.
Give me her recycling so I could get $2. Thank you so much. It means the world to me, you fucking millionaire.
Literal
multimillionaire. Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for $2 that I have to continue to work for.
That I have to then go spend my gas to go fucking get.
Yep.
I can't. We're derailed.
Anyway,
go ahead. Happy story. Here we go. Tell us positive things.
So my first couple of years here, I was so broke. 100% of my entertainment, my first couple of years in LA, was Jimmy Kimmel Live.
That's
awesome. It was their outdoor concerts. It was going to the show because those first 4 months I lived a block away from there. So it's like, I have nothing to do. I have nowhere to go. I can't afford to go see a movie. I can't afford to even fucking rent a movie.
Jesus.
So I would go to Jimmy Kimmel Live, and like my roommate and I would dress up because then they put you in the front row, and it was a great time. And like Jimmy also used to host the San Gennaro Festival in.
I forgot about that. Do they do that anymore?
I don't know. I don't know if it doesn't exist anymore or if it's just not on my radar. But like
they'd shut down Hollywood for that. That was really fun.
It was really fun.
About that.
So shout out to Jimmy Kimmel Live for keeping me in LA and keeping
and sane.
Sane. That's a question.
Well, yes, remains to be seen. That is a lovely thing. So you would that was your entertainment, was free. And that what an interesting little window into comedy too. What an interesting sort of foreshadowing if we were writing this as a screenplay.
Oh yeah, it's also funny because I never would have thought that seemed like the top of the mountain to me. And now a close friend of mine is on staff, and I am acquaintances with a lot of the staff there, and it feels surreal every time I talk to anyone from the show. I'm like, this like kept me alive.
I just love it. Yeah, I love that. And I think that that'll be such a great, what a great story. Anyway, so
It'll be a great story when I'm doing panel on the show.
Yeah,
Eventually,
put it out there. Okay,
Yeah.
so just get us up to speed as far as, so you take the improv classes, you're kind of getting a taste, but you're thinking, well, no females do comedy, or there's already the chosen few, so I can't do it. So what plants the seed in your brain to get us to today, where now you're touring the world with comedy? What got us here?
There was a couple of people at Second City that had done stand-up, and they just seemed cooler than everyone else. They were just like, or like kind of hardened, like, yeah, I do stand-up, so like I just improvise here like Wednesdays or whatever, and the rest of the time I'm just like flying solo at the club, and I'm like, ooh, I like that vibe, and so I decided to do it. I was like, I'm just going to try it. But I was terrified of it. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to like do it. I'm just going to try it just to say that just for the street cred. Like that's what 100% of why I was doing it. So another girl that was at Second City had made a goal of doing stand-up before her birthday. So I was like, great, I'm going to do it before my birthday. And there we go. And it just so happened that I got an audition to be part of some sketch group that I found on like LA Casting or something like that. And they were like, for your audition, we'd like you to prepare a comedic monologue. And so me, because I can't memorize anything, I said, well, instead of a comedic monologue, can I just do stand-up? And they were like, yeah, that's fine if you do stand-up. And I was like, yeah, of course I do. So that audition
was your first time doing stand-up?
First time doing stand-up.
I didn't know that. I thought I saw you do your first time doing stand-up. That's hilarious. Okay. So
no, it just felt like it was my first time, Kate.
God bless that Greek restaurant where Lisa stood on what was a makeshift stage, which wasn't really a stage, where they just moved some tables and performed for the 5 of us that came to support her.
I don't even, that you just described a third of the gigs I've done. I don't even know.
Okay, so you do it for that audition, and did you say to yourself, oh, this is it though?
The second I was on stage doing it, I was like, oh yeah, this is it forever.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
It was like, I don't know. I can't really describe the feeling. It was just like this. It's like when people tell you, you'll know when you have your first orgasm, and then you're orgasming, you're like, oh yeah, this is unmistakable. It was like that.
I wouldn't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. So you get a taste, and then you get into the open mic circuit. You're starting to put in work, and you are one of the lucky few that got out of customer service and doesn't have to work in it anymore. So what was the transition point that you were able to, because you had a couple of tastes where you thought, okay, I'm never going back to customer service, here I go, and then had to. We will get into that later. But what was the definitive moment where you were, now I'm out, I don't have to do this anymore?
Last fall, really, when I got Jim Jeffries' show, because it was like enough money that it pulled me out of, like, I had a couple of times where I like false starts into being out of restaurant work. And, when something big or exciting happens, you think that that's going to be enough to launch you into the next thing. And that's something that could happen very quickly. Yeah. But I think more often than not, it's just another building block towards the next thing. And it's like I wrapped Jim Jeffries' show last November. I still haven't been full-time on a staff since then. And this is August. Granted, coronavirus shut down a ton of production, and there's a lot of stuff that just isn't happening. And there's like 2 jobs right now. But if that was a non-union show and I hadn't been making union money and I hadn't been making residuals, I would not be afloat right now. It's 100% because it was a WGA job, which thank God for the WGA.
I'm pro-union too for these reasons, right there. Yep.
Yeah. It's like, it's kept me afloat this whole time. And granted, I've had like little gigs here and there since then. So it's not like I've had zero income outside of that.
Sure.
But that pay is so substantial that it was able to keep me out of restaurant work.
I just want to touch on that really quickly. This isn't a podcast about the industry, but sort of inevitably when I have industry guests on, we sort of get a deeper dive into it. I do want to clarify, because I think for a lot of the audience, it feels exorbitant to, and we're not going to talk actual numbers, but I think for a lot of people it feels like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, entertainment. Yeah, you're making all of this money that you haven't earned. But I hope the listeners remember what Lisa talked about in the beginning part of her story, which was the 63 cents out of the cup holder to pay for gas. That is all the time, effort, and energy that is putting in work to get to the finish, not finish line, but to sort of get to the prom queen status of now I'm paid to write for television, money that is, you know, exorbitant in other parts of the country, definitely in other parts of the world, but that the lean times are so long and they're so desperately sad, to be quite frank, that once you finally get that payday, especially after multiple false starts that feel like, oh, finally I can quit this job. I can tell every customer to eat my entire butt. And then, nope, just kidding. You got to swallow it. And I've said it on this podcast 100 times. It's worse to get a little taste and then to have to go back and eat shit and go back to that job you hate and deal with customers that want to shit all over you, or management that does, or a schedule that does, or whatever. It's worse. You would almost rather just have feast or famine, because the middle ground can make people leave the business altogether.
Yeah, because it feels abusive when you're like, I've written jokes that people said on television and I was paid well for them. I had 3 TV writing jobs before Jim Jeffries show, all non-union, all short-term jobs. So they were just like a nice little bonus of money, but not
even all that much though. Not enough to live.
Yeah. Not enough to live, not enough to get out of debt, not, you know, and you accrue so much fucking debt trying to
get there. Yes.
Get there. And you also have to keep in mind, like, when you're working a restaurant job and pursuing something else, you have 2 full-time jobs.
2.
And one of them pays you 0.
Yep. And you're it's labor of love, labor of love, labor of love, labor of love that consumes, especially if you work as a comic, a large portion of the hours when other people are sleeping and refueling. You don't have the luxury to even get time to refuel with your sleep. So you're going crazy because you're also not sleeping. You're poor and not eating well and not sleeping. And a lot of the entertainment industry too, especially with social media, they expect you to be a jack of all trades. Yes.
So it's like, you're getting off of your shift and you run home and you eat lunch really quick, and then you have to update your resume and figure out your website, because you can't pay somebody to do your website. So you have to fucking figure out how to build a website and do that on your own. And then you've got to send out booking emails, and then you have a show. So you have to run to your show, and they have to come home and cook a healthy meal, because God forbid you eat fucking bread for a day. And, you know, you have to get up at the crack of dawn the next morning to work out, because you're trying to sell yourself,
your physical body.
And then you're doing this 7 days a week, and then
7 days a week, not 5, 7,
not 5, 7 days a week, and then you're also picking up babysitting gigs and whatever else, like,
and house sitting and dog walking. Any of the small shit.
You pick up anything you possibly fucking can. You sell your blood, you sell your plasma, whatever it is. I've multiple friends who've sold their eggs, because that's a little bit bigger paycheck. You do all this, and you feel like you just cannot possibly keep going. And then you meet an agent or a manager that's like, well, why don't you have a new pilot? And it's like, why don't I have a new pilot? Why don't I have it? I haven't had time to make a sandwich. Are you fucking joking? Like, they expect you to have everything. And then they're like, you don't know how to use iMovie? And I'm like, huh? I haven't watched a movie in 2 years.
I don't have time. What
are you talking about?
You should be spending your free time watching television, so that when you get the audition, you know the tone of the show. If I have 10 extra minutes, I'm going to sleep. I don't care.
Let me tell you, I have written for 4 television shows. Do you know what I watched this week? There's a movie on Amazon it's called Drive-In Ads.
I saw your post. I love this so much. Go ahead.
I just watched back-to-back commercials from the 1960s. That's what I watched. And I write for and people are like, what do you mean you don't watch TV? You haven't seen every episode of The Wire? I wouldn't recognize a still shot from The Wire. Do you understand? I've never seen Queer Eye. I watched the Mary Tyler Moore show this week, because by the time I have a second
you want to zone out
and watch 3 minutes of TV, my brain is done. I don't want to be emotionally invested in something. I already know I like Mary Tyler Moore. I'm going to turn her on and watch that. and feel joy for 5 fucking minutes before I have to give myself a manicure. Do you understand? Like, that's where I'm at.
Oh my gosh, it's so real. Okay, well, thanks, folks, for listening to the abs portion. I told y'all this was going to be a 17-parter episode, so I really wanted to get into the nitty gritty because I've known Lisa for a long time, and, it's nice to see her have some success. So, well, we hope you enjoyed your apps, because that was just apps, folks, and we know this is a 3-part podcast. So we're going to go to the entrees after a quick break. We're back. Thank you, folks, for listening. Lisa's laughing, as most guests do when I do the "we're back." And now we are on to the entrees. Oh, we've gotten there, folks. And it's the super speedy speed round of questions. So feel free to tell stories during this time, but I ask sort of the same questions in every episode. But for you, I added a couple because I want to force you to tell stories. So what was your first job ever, ever, ever? It doesn't have to be customer service, but the very first job you worked.
Ever was cleaning my parents' bar.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, and
How
I
old were
desperately
you?
wanted to be a bartender when I was a kid. And so my mom let me one day, and she got me a tiny custom shirt with like the bar logo on it when I was like 5.
I'll
When I
die.
went behind the bar and tried to, I have pictures somewhere. I have this teeny tiny shirt that said Melody Hill Tavern, and I couldn't reach the taps, and it was like this biker bar. And so I was like, okay, pop only, because it's Indiana and we say pop because we are uneducated. And so I'm like, pop only, because I can't reach the thing, and all I can reach is the soda gun. And so these guys like started giving me a hard time, and I started crying, and I left. And that's pretty much how I left my last restaurant job too.
Bikers shaming you for something that's beyond your scope of skill set, and you just cry. Cool. Yeah. How many customer service jobs have you had? And feel free to take your time counting these, because I would count that. That's customer service. So at 5 was your first job. So you don't have to say your age, but you have a couple more.
My first job where someone hired me.
Yeah. For customer service.
I worked for a company and I got a paycheck was I was a busser at a country club.
Okay, that's one.
This is how obsessed, by the way, with like making any amount of money I can. We were allowed to clock in up to 5 minutes early. So I would get there 5 minutes early every day so I could get 5 extra minutes of pay. By the way, pay was like $2.50 an hour. Okay.
$2.13, my love. $2.13.
I was like, it's an extra penny or whatever. Yep. And I was like so obsessed with getting it because I'm like, it all adds up.
God. That hustle. I so identify with that hustle. It's exhausting.
Now I'm like, if somebody offers me $200 for something, I'm like, no, for $200, I'll post something on Twitter. That's what I will do for $200.
That requires zero effort. It's because people have no idea how much time creative stuff actually takes and what. Anyway, that's a separate issue. Okay, so that's one job.
Was one.
Okay.
From there, I started working at a restaurant that also became a nightclub, and that was like my main job.
Oh, were you selling roses there, or what were you doing there? I feel like did I reveal?
Well, I started as a host.
Oh, okay.
And then a busser.
Oh, okay.
And then after I worked there for a while, they started doing a nightclub there on the weekends. So
we're at 3 so far. So host, busser. Well, we got the golf club, host, busser. Okay. And then what was there a fourth? Fourth job at that same club?
2 things. One, when they started the nightclub, it was like wintertime, and I'm like, you guys should have a coat check. And they were like, great idea. Like adults running a nightclub hadn't thought of coat check in Northwest Indiana.
Sure.
A child did. And they were like, since you came up with it, you can run it.
Which is nice.
They're like, but you can't be on the clock because it's against labor laws, because I was only 17 or 16 at the time.
Oh, and you couldn't work at a club because you weren't 18 yet.
I couldn't work at a nightclub. I couldn't work past, I think, like 10 o'clock at night or something like that, according to Indiana labor laws. So they're like, well, you can, but you have to be off the clock and just work for tips. So I'm like, okay, no problem. Like, I get to hang out at a nightclub. Are you joking?
Done.
And I get to wear like a half shirt and sparkly pants. Like, I dressed psychotically.
I believe that.
I was a super trampy looking virgin teen. And so
which is an aesthetic you're really rocking now as well, just to be clear. Okay, go ahead.
I start this coat check, which the club decides is a free coat check. And they're like, yeah, free coat check. And there's just a tip jar. My first week I make $30.
Ew.
Immediately I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm not staying here for $30 all night. Like
I wouldn't even stay there for 100.
Cool
fuck that. Yeah, no.
Mm-hmm. So the following week I started charging everyone. And it was a free coat check. and I charged everyone. And I recommend this to everyone. This is my favorite grift.
Me too.
No, this isn't my favorite grift. I have another favorite grift.
Well, this is my favorite of the ones I know of yours. Keep going.
You don't. Do you? I'll tell.
We'll get there.
So I would tell everyone it's $1, but I knew that like the owners were there. Also, I was babysitting for the owner at the time, so I knew who like their friends and family were. So I wouldn't charge their friends and family, but I had the tip jar out. And I would say $1. And then when people would try to hand it to me, I'd be like, oh no, just throw it in the jar. So anyone watching would just watch them tip me. I would never touch the money.
Genius. You
Never.
hustler, little hustler. Okay.
Yeah. So then I start making like $300 a night.
Woohoo!
Doing free coat check that I did for like 3 years. And I would have a friend fill in for me. And I told her who was like,
who to charge and who to not. Okay.
It was so fun because we were both, I mean, her family's also desperately poor, and like her mom probably makes $300 in a week. So for her to pull in $300 in a night was
life-changing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
We made so much money there. So the owner of that place also owned a catering company. So I also worked for that at the same time, catering. And he also had an inn at a different country club up the road from that place. So I worked at that country club.
6. I'm going to throw in the babysitting you also mentioned. So we're at 7. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And before that, I was like tutoring and lifeguarding and teaching swim lessons. And
so tutoring, lifeguarding, teaching swim lessons. We're up to 10. That's 10.
So much. So those are my jobs in
Indiana. Those are before California.
Those are all before I'm 18.
Okay. So that's 10.
I think those might not be all my jobs, but I think those are all. Oh, no. I also I was a telemarketer for 2 days and then I quit.
Oh, that counts. 11. Gross. Okay.
So there's that.
Okay.
I move out to LA. My very first job in LA is working for another aunt she's a general contractor. So the aunt who I'm staying with, whose house is under construction, is the construction's being run by my other aunt. So I'm also working on the house and power sanding ceilings for $8 an hour.
That's reasonable.
That's not child abuse. I don't know what the fuck is.
Also, taking advantage of family. They couldn't hire out $8 an hour power sanders. They would have had to pay double that minimum. Gross. Okay.
And then she would like bark at me while I was doing any amount of work, and she'd be like, "You're not doing that right." And I'm like,
oh boy. Okay.
You're paying me $8 an hour under the table. So I don't even get, this doesn't even go into any, like, I'm not even going to tax return on this. Anyway.
I'm not going to count that towards customer service, but still that job is horrible. We're still at 11 for customer service. Keep going.
We're 11 for customer service. Then I see an ad for an advertising job.
Oh God, this job. Like this is also fake, Lisa. This is fake. Go ahead. Barf.
I get there. It is selling coupon books door to door.
Selling coupon books door to door in bad neighborhoods. We're at 12.
So this is, and it's not even like the nice entertainment coupon books you can get that you buy for fundraisers or whatever.
No, this is for oil changes and bullshit.
It's like a 2-page thing for like oil changes and pizzas. And so I learned to pitch all of these things in Spanish because they would send us into like, not all neighborhoods. Yes, neighborhoods are bad neighborhoods.
No, it just happened to be that this neighborhood had a predominantly Spanish speaking.
Yes, because we hold people back the way we do, and because of blah blah blah.
All the facts of the economy.
It ends up being that a lot of migrant workers have to end up living in one shitty neighborhood because we don't allow them into our barriers. Anyway,
because God forbid.
I'm just trying to say I get it. I didn't say that.
There's an economic distinction. We understand that exists. Yeah. Here we go.
So, what was also fucked about that job was there was no hourly pay. So you'd get cash. You would get cash commission at the end of the day.
God.
So for anyone who hasn't had a cash everyday job, once you start making cash, it's almost impossible to come out of that because you're like, now I'm living day to day.
Yep.
I can't afford to wait 2 weeks for the paycheck period at a new job to kick in. I will have defaulted on everything by then.
Because you come in with debt. You're not coming in on a clean slate either. To do a cash job like that, you came in with problems.
Yeah, came in with problems.
Oh, God.
So it was also, you had like a quote account. So if somebody wrote you a check and it was a bad check, you paid for it. So they still get their coupon book.
You did not tell me this.
The money gets extracted. One guy wrote me a bad check for like 10 coupon books or something. I paid for that myself.
Oh, that's so shitty. That's so shitty.
And it was a pyramid scheme where they're like, oh, you're on a team and then you have to recruit other people to get on your team. Here's a couple of things that I didn't recognize at the beginning. One, we kept being told we were independent contractors, so we weren't hourly, but we had to be there at 9 a.m. or we would be fucking reamed out. If we weren't there for 12, we had to be 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. were our hours, Monday through Saturday.
Which was why when the Van Nuys rapist murderer situation was happening, you were freaking out because this was the job you had at that time, right?
This was a job I had at that time. Also I was working for a catering company in LA at that time.
Okay, well, I'm going to add that to that. We haven't counted that yet. I'm going to put that as 13, but go ahead.
So one of my first gigs in LA was like working the Oscars, and I was so excited, and I told everyone from back home, and no one believed me. They're like, no, you didn't.
Yeah, because we don't realize that those are such shitty jobs. That's why they come and go so quickly. Okay. So you were go to the selling coupons job though. So you're selling coupons. They're writing you bad checks. How long do you stay in that rotation of cash day jobs?
I'm there from like maybe January to March. I'm desperate to get out of it, but I can't because I'm dependent on cash every day, and it's Monday through Saturday. So
when the fuck else are you going to on Sunday? You're not. Oh.
So I'm heading back to the office or like towards the office on my lunch break, and I see Starbucks is having a hiring fair. And so on my lunch break, I pull in, I fill out an application, I sit down, the manager comes over and she's like, hi. And I was like, I don't have much time. I'm on a lunch break. I'm trapped in a pyramid scheme. I'm like, please help me. I'm like, I can't get out of this. I'm making cash every day. I'm working Monday through Saturday, 12 hours. I've worked in restaurants. I'm like, I'll be the best employee you've ever had. And she was like, oh my God, yes, I'll hire you.
Bless her.
On the spot hires me. And she's like, this is fucking crazy. So then when I'm working then I get the job at Starbucks. So I start incorporating that in and then almost immediately phase out because Starbucks, you also get tips.
But also,
so it was like
the detail you're leaving out. Starbucks also, sometimes your wake up time is 3:30 in the morning to be there by 4 for opening to set up by 5. So you can't. Yeah. How are you working a 12-hour shift, going to bed for 2 hours, and getting up at 3 in the morning?
Also, I'm still doing construction.
Lisa,
I'm still doing construction at this point. And I'm living in Monrovia. So I'm living in Monrovia, working at Starbucks in Studio City. By the way, that's an hour drive.
That's without traffic. That's an hour without traffic.
Without traffic. I'm getting up at the crack of dawn to drive east, so further past Monrovia to go work construction jobs with my aunt for like 2-3 hours. I change in the car on the freeway.
Oh, the number of times.
I'm barely making it to Starbucks in time. And then there were days, Kate, not a lot, but there was a handful of days where I did construction in the morning and then worked a mid shift at Starbucks and then did my catering job at night.
And then got up and did it all over again. No, you go crazy. No one has yet.
And at the end of the day, you have $100.
And it's you can't. You spent more money on gas, and this is why I'm sorry. This podcast is not about this, but like this is why the poverty circle is borderline impossible to get out of, because even if you have the hustler spirit, even if you are working 17 jobs, at no point does the financial bottom line do anything other than keep you at the financial bottom line, because you can never fucking get ahead because it costs so much money to get to this job, to that job. Or if someone writes you a bad check, or you have to pay for your uniform, or you came in with debt, which inevitably so many poor people do. It's like, this is a cycle. It's not like, oh, it makes me fucking crazy. And no guest yet has talked about, and I've done it too, having the change of clothes for the various jobs in your car and driving physically with foot on the accelerator, although you would do this anyway, but foot on the accelerator, moving the car forward to try and not be late. Changing your fucking pants to not be late for job number 2, 3, 4. I was doing that 2 years ago. I mean, that hustle.
It's painful.
It's painful.
It's painful. If you're operating on such a thin strand of sanity, that if one thing goes wrong, your tire blows,
it's over.
It's a mental breakdown.
It's over.
It's not an inconvenience in your day. It's ruined your fucking
It's
life.
curtains. Yes, 100%. Because you're never getting your tank filled. And so you working those 3 jobs, it's like, I mean, you're making now you're making tips at Starbucks, but it's like to be able to claw your way out of even the pyramid scheme, it wasn't very obvious for you to be able to quit right away. Like, Anyway, sorry. So we're keep going.
Oh,
so
and
we're
then I'm at Starbucks, and
So we're
it's
at
not
14.
enough money to make a dent.
No,
It's
it's not.
fine. I finally have health insurance. That's nice, but it's not moving the needle for me. I'm finally able to quit the multi-level marketing job. I'm still doing construction sometimes. I'm definitely catering, and then and I'll say her name because she's an angel. AJ Gardner worked with me at Starbucks, and she's like, "Oh, I also work at Hard Rock. It's way more money." And I was like, I don't know if they'll hire me because I only have like busser experience and she's like, I'm making sure you get this job. Physically picked me up and drove me into Hard Rock. And she's like, you need to hire this girl. And they fucking hired me.
And to be fair, I didn't realize this at the time. And the only reason I got a job at Hard Rock is because the guy that I gave my resume to happened to physically walk it to the back and say, hey, hire this person. Because I didn't realize when I finally started working there, we were getting 20 resumes a day for that job because it was a hugely busy, great location. It was the only Hard Rock in Hollywood at the time. And if AJ hadn't done that, even if you had physically gone with 20 years of experience for waiting tables, that job was so competitive to get. You needed someone to either do what AJ did or do what I cannot remember his name, what that guy did for me, because that job was so and I learned later that was not an anomaly for serving in LA because there was an overflow of people willing to work in hospitality because we were all in entertainment. And so we needed a job that we could just keep at the job and didn't take home with us and could make quick cash, do it right now, and then go back to our second full-time job, which was creativity or whatever. Sorry, go ahead. So AJ walks you in.
Oh yeah, that's okay. So she walks me in, I get the job, work there for a while.
So we're at 16.
Oh God. So then there's a couple that came into Starbucks regularly and they said they were going on vacation.
Oh, this
out of my ass. I'm like, do you need a house sitter? Because I'm still living on Monrovia and they live blocks away from Starbucks. And I'm like, do you need a house sitter? And they're like, do you house sit? And I'm like, yeah, lie. I've never house sat in my life. But
never, not even for a day, but
what could it entail? I could fucking power sand your ceiling while you're gone if that's what you need. Okay. I'm sure I can handle whatever's happening with your house while I'm there. So I start house sitting for them. They recommend me to another couple who I also start house sitting. And by the way, these are all dog sitting situations.
Yeah, this counts as customer service for me. We're at 18. Keep going. So this other couple.
Also, I will say this couple did this, and I say this because don't ever do this to someone.
Yeah, this is so shitty.
They hired me for $20 a day, which fine, whatever. I was fucking 19 or 20 by now.
And desperate. And it wasn't Monrovia.
Desperate, and it was saving me a drive. Yeah. I didn't really give a shit. I thought they couldn't afford anymore because $20 a day, and they would go to like Indonesia for a month. Jesus. And so for me, I'm like, that's a fortune, $600 for the month. Who could afford that? Like, that's so much money. Not realizing I was getting ripped off. And then when they recommended me to other people, they'd say, we pay her $20 a day.
Don't do that. Let her set her own.
Don't do that to people. If anything, say, we pay her $100 a day, which I know is steep, but maybe you can talk her down. Like,
do them a solid.
Someone.
Yeah.
Don't ever pass somebody's rate on, especially if you're fucking them.
For anything. That's just a rude thing to do. Okay, so we're at 18. So you house sit for those two couples.
I'm house sitting for them.
Still doing Hard Rock and Starbucks simultaneously, right? So now we have 4 simultaneous jobs going on.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because are you house sitting for 2 houses at the same time?
No, I did a couple of times.
I know you did.
A couple of days overlap, but it wasn't a ton.
Okay.
It was only if like one of the parties was like, you don't have to stay the night here. Just let the dog out in the morning.
This is how I don't understand the chaos of your life. Like you would go from one house sitting gig. You were like, yep, wrapped everything up in the morning. And you literally be going to another house and walking. I don't know how you did this. Okay. So we're at 18.
Insanity. So then
Now, during Hard Rock, at any point, do you then drop Starbucks? Like when to start? Because the Hard Rock schedule to maintain Starbucks is too hard.
I drop Starbucks because I'm tired of getting up at 4 a.m.
It's to go to worst.
And I'm like, this is, and Hard Rock offered health insurance. I'm like, well, I'll have health insurance from Hard Rock and it's more money. I'll get rid of Starbucks.
How long into the Hard Rock job before you were like, no?
Maybe a year.
Holy shit. So you were doing Starbucks and Hard Rock for a year? Simultaneous. Yeah. Girl, come on, man. Okay.
It was bad.
Okay.
So I'm doing that. Then I drop Starbucks. And then after a while, Hard Rock, because it's seasonal, I'm like, I need to make more money. I can't afford to come in like on the off season and make only $30 when I'm used to making $200.
And let me clear up. So the location of this Hard Rock was in Universal City, which is in the center of Universal Studios property. And when she says seasonal, the summer hours are, you know, if you're there in the summer, as soon as spring break hits, basically, that Hard Rock, I mean, there were nights we had 2.5 hour waits and people would wait. And I mean, it was it was gangbusters. And as quickly as you could turn the table, it was filled again. But the feast season was brief. It would go from March until about end of July, early August, because as soon as everybody was back in school, then Universal Studios calmed down a lot, and then the business kind of did. And there was a period of time where they weren't doing Halloween Horror Nights, and they were only doing Grinchmas. So you could maybe get a pop in December, but basically, if you were working at Hard Rock and you were not enterprising and didn't know, like Will Orr, God love him, to save your money meticulously during the feast time, you couldn't survive in the off season. And what restaurant employee, minus Will, is saving their? I mean, it's just not, especially
what employee can afford.
Yes,
that's another thing. Like, it's so fucked that you also have to figure in you don't get a break for your own vacation. You get a break for somebody else's, and not even a break. You just stop making money.
Yeah, so you get hurt.
I have to save up to be paid less later.
Oh, it's
not save up for something joyous
that I get to do that I'm so excited about. Okay,
never.
So we're at 18. So what's after, how long?
Once I realized, like, this is untenable to just make money 4 months out of the year, like good money 4 months out of the year. I applied for a job in Beverly Hills. So I'm working at a restaurant in Beverly Hills. So I'm open. I'm living for anyone in LA, living in Studio City by this time, driving over the hill to Beverly Hills to work in the morning, then racing over to Universal City to work at Hard Rock. And I'm doing this. I'm working 7 days a week again, because it's like the Beverly Hills job is like 3-4 days a week. Hard Rock is another 3-4 days a week. They overlap. Oh, I forgot. No. Before Beverly Hills, I worked at Morton's Steakhouse.
Forgot about that too.
Because some of the people at Hard Rock also worked at Morton's, and so they got me a job there. And I quit because this is a low point in my life. I quit because my boyfriend at the time, who I pretty much lived with because I stayed at his house every night, we both worked at Hard Rock together. We both worked at Morton's together. His best friend and his best friend's girlfriend also worked both jobs with us, and they lived in his apartment building. So the four of us, every morning, we would open up Morton's, and then every night we would work at Hard Rock, and it was the most nauseating, boring, rote fucking year of my life. And like, I don't blame that. Like, it was very comfortable for them, and they enjoyed it. I would rather be dead than do that again.
Well, you also had other pursuits. This wasn't, I mean, if that were the only thing you had going on, not that that's a bad thing. Some people are career, lifetime customer service people, lifetime restaurateurs, do your thing. But you wanted more. Yeah, exactly. And so I quit Morton's because they offered me, at the time, my boyfriend was the full-time day bartender, and the clientele is mostly men there. And so my boss behind my boyfriend's back was like, hey, I'll give all of your boyfriend's shifts to you if you want to take the daytime bartending spot, because you're a woman, and we have older men coming in. They want to see a woman behind the bar. They don't want to talk to your boyfriend. And you're like, I don't want to talk to my boyfriend. Great. Well, and I kind of regret it, because I'm like, well, it would have been so much money. And Morton's is a great company to work for. Yeah. Why didn't you say yes? I mean, I guess it would have been shitty. Also, by then I knew I was going to break up with him, and he had just quit Hard Rock. So I was like, I should do that to him, because it would be really fucked up if I'm too principled for my own good, because I thought it would be straight up evil for me to then steal all his bartending, take his shifts, and then break up with him. So he's now unemployed and brokenhearted. Yeah, you would be a piece of shit. So that's fair. No, I couldn't do that. So I quit Morton's. Okay. So I'm fine for a minute. Then I'm like, I need more money again, because I'll never get out of debt with just one. Oh, I forgot one. 21. In the middle of this guy, Chuck, who we had worked at Hard Rock with, who I don't think you really remember. Chuck and I were close, and he had quit Hard Rock and I'm living in Burbank at this time. He quit Hard Rock and was managing. She agrees. She makes such ridiculous noises. She's like, you've been recording for 3 hours, Mom. What's going on? I know. Hold on. Let me give her a carrot. Okay. Sorry.